episode number 2. So, okay, let's say we did some self-analysis and we have done some self-discovery, and we finally, after years and years of not knowing who we are, what we want, we start to understand what we are all about. Right, so we already know, or starting to know what we want, and the question is, how do we break this news to the people around us? So the first thing that I would say actually is useful and works quite well is start communicating. Start communicating in a gentle way. I know there are people who would say, just go with it, live your life, ride your wave, live your passion, and it's all very good and everything. But the problem is when we take that attitude, we behave the same way as a tsunami or hurricane in our people's, in our close people's lives. So especially when we discover there are some internal change which is quite extreme or strong, or something that people around us don't expect, starting communicating that gently, like bit by bit, actually I believe works much better than just kind of breaking news. Because we all know, and we've all been in a situation like how, let's say, if somebody comes up to us and they say, I'm moving to Australia, close person or a friend or somebody say, okay, that's it, I decided I want to change my life, I'm moving to Australia. Let's say you live in Europe. No matter how wonderful and good and beautiful your life potential is in Australia, for example, the thing that people around us are seeing is they're gonna lose us. They're gonna lose connection with us, and it's scary. Then what happens later, let's say in that situation, as we talk, as we communicate, as we, explain our reasons for that, after some time people do kind of accept that idea. But the first reaction for any kind of like a tsunami like changes or news is like, no, I don't like it, I don't want it, that's, I'm not gonna agree with it, or I'm gonna reject it, or people try to persuade you other way. But when we start, it's kind of like imagine we planting a new plant. Let's say we want to plant a new tomato plant, and if we prepare the soil, we put some fertilizers, we put some vitamins, we put some water, then we put a small plant in there, and then we water it, it kind of grows. It grows naturally. It doesn't experience this either, survive or die type of condition. So I think the same is true for our communication style to people around us. Is like when we start doing it gently and gradually, honestly, and from the heart, it actually works better. If we suddenly realizing that we want to have a career change, let's say we have a job which we had for many years, and then suddenly we decide we actually would like to start our own business. Instead of saying, okay, that's it, I have this realization and I'm quitting my job, this is my resignation note, I'm going to this course, I know what I want to do, and I'm going to do that. It will be very scary for the other person to kind of accept that okay, what's going to happen with them, what's going to happen with the, let's say, household income, what's going to happen, with the dynamics, the way things work, work-life balance, level of business, that kind of thing. But if we, start communicating gradually, okay, I have not been feeling very much in the right place where I am right now, or I have been having some realizations, or I started to feel like something is missing, and we start to kind of our conversation like that, not only conversation, but like kind of daily conversation, the people around us starts to kind of, first of all, accept the idea that there is some change that is taking place in the way we are, or something is taking some change is taking place in the way we operate. So then people understand that, okay, something is actually changing with her, or okay, let's say Ruta has some ideas, or there is something different that she is thinking about. So like that, okay, it's already this kind of knowledge in our immediate environment, people's minds, that we are having some new thoughts. And new thoughts is okay thing to do, because thoughts are thoughts. We're not breaking the house apart, we're not wreaking havoc, we're just having some new thoughts. So that's a good start. Continue to talk about it, and even sharing and communicating in the process as we're thinking about it, and the options that we're thinking about, or explorations that we want to do, is also a good idea, because then people in our life, they feel like they are part of our change process. So we don't really separate our own thing completely away from them, but we include them in our, let's say, development or expansion. Warning for people like us who have this tendency to usually go with other people's ideas, or let's say whatever other people want from us, just to kind of avoid conflict or make things smooth. There is a tendency, if we communicate something and the other person, and we try to involve other person in our, let's say, process of exploration, expansion, or change, they might try to swing us in another direction. Sometimes actually it's a good idea to kind of give ourselves time to understand what we feel and what we want, and then communicate to other people. Because if we will not want to have let's say, conflicts or antagonism or resistance from other people, the tendency will be, we'll say, okay, I was thinking about, I don't know, if I'm not sure if I'm happy in my career. And then if if people from our environment would come in very strong with like, okay, what's wrong? But it's very good. Are you thinking, quitting your job or something like that? And if they coming on to us very strongly with their opinions and views, it could be that we will back off with that idea. So it is a good idea sometimes, just take some time away to understand what we feel, what is our truth, what is our authentic want. So it's kind of basically, the skill here is to do both. To take enough time and space for ourselves to become clear what is that we want, let's say, to change, and communicate that to people in our environment. Because it doesn't work like doing one or the other, it might not work for us so well. Of course, depends on how good we are with our boundaries, but but this is more like what I'm talking about is more directed to people who, like who tend to allow our boundaries to be pushed and crossed. And I think that's also part of the problem and the reason why we are stuck in a life that is not really our life, is because we don't really know our boundaries, and we have allowed other people to cross our boundaries without even knowing where our boundaries start or finish. So this is basically allowing other people to influence us in what they want us to do and going with it, versus sticking to what we want to do and allowing other people to choose if that's what they want to be part of or not. So we don't really have this very good skill of actually going for what we want and saying, no, this is not the career for me really, or this is not really job for me. I think I'm gonna wait out and take another opportunity. Another one thing that we need to do in our environment with people who are closest to us is learn to have conflicts. And that's the most difficult thing to do. If you're like me, or if you're in a situation where everybody's pretty happy with the way they are in your life, the chances are that this is going to be the toughest thing to do. Because like I would like to say that, change, once you realize what you really want, and once you realize what your true passion is, and once you realize how you need to change your life, or even that you do need to change your life, everything's gonna fall in its places and it's gonna be easy. I don't think that's actually the reality that you're gonna meet, because there's going to be some conflicts, and we're gonna have to go through it. This like idealistic and unrealistic view that lots of people have, and I had as well, is good relationship means no conflicts. I think the only way when you can have no conflicts if you have fake relationship. I mean, when you look at two different people, and even if you look at twins, or like, let's say, brothers or sisters, the same parents, the same growing up environment, the same, let's say there is some similar biology and things like that, even those two people would be very different. So how many differences you are going to find with other people who are not even from your family? 100% there's going to be differences of opinions, differences of preferences, differences of wants. There's definitely going to be differences between two people. There's going to be disagreements between two people. There's going to be even like a different preferences, different views, different perspectives. I don't know if it's even kind of like a possible to even, let's say, even if we are super evolved and diplomatic and tactful, to address those differences without having a conflict, or at least feelings of a conflict. So we're going to have to learn to have conflicts with people and to be okay with that. Also, to accept differences between us and other people and to be okay with that. Also, we will have to teach people in our environment to accept differences between them and us, and for them to be okay with that. It is very easy to be with a person who always agrees, or most of the time agrees, with let's say, you want, and is not much of kind of like a differences, mediation, and compromise that needs to be done. It's very easy. And relationship is easy. But because I believe the only way to have this type of relationship is to have fake relationship, if we really want to have a real relationship, again, I'm talking about all types of relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, any type of relationship, we are going to have to learn how to be real around other people. Being real is uncomfortable, because if we are being real and what is real about is being rejected, or if we expect that what is real for us to be rejected, it is quite difficult to communicate and express that. So how do we become okay with conflict? I think first thing to do is to accept the fact that if we were to have real relationship with anybody, we will have conflict, and the conflict is normal. Also, to accept that having a conflict doesn't mean that the relationship is going wrong, is to understand that to have a conflict could be potentially a very good thing. Because I actually read somewhere, or I heard somewhere, saying there is no real relationship up until you had a conflict. Because once you had the conflict and you had some differences, after that, if a relationship continues, that means you are okay to be the way you are, or at least even seeing that difference, the relationship is strong enough to continue. And in the relationship, there is basically space to have differences. So relationship is not a dictatorship, it's a democracy. If you can make good decisions and you can come to conclusions about something from two different points of view, or also it means that, okay, I can have opinion different than yours and we still can be friends. We may disagree about something, but just because we disagree about something, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means that I have my point of view and you have your point of view, and I have a right to have my point of view, and I respect your right to have your point of view. So once we start having conflicts with people in our environment, if we discover that some people, they are not okay with that, it means one of two things. One is either they are not okay to have any opposition, and they don't really okay with the way we actually are and the way we actually express ourselves, or this is something that they don't expect from us or have not seen from us so far, and they are resisting it. So in the first scenario, if the person is not actually okay for us to have any difference from their views, that means probably the relation is not really compatible. That means probably the person does not really want to accommodate the real us and our truth. If the scenario is number two, where they are not okay with us having this conflict because they're just not used to having this conflict, it could be that there is some time that they need to accept that, okay, this person actually maybe they have different views from mine, it's unusual. And maybe at some point, once they will accept this change, they'll be okay with that. That means they are actually okay to incorporate and accommodate our reality or our real expression. So conflicts, you can say, is a good way to recognize who wants to stay in your life and who doesn't. At the same time, like it doesn't mean that we have to be like, again, tsunami or bulldozer, where we say, okay, you absolutely have to accept, now I'm gonna be having conflicts with you, and you need to accept this with me, and you need to accept this about me, because if you're not gonna accept this about me, that means you're out, or I'm out, because it's kind of unfair, especially if we ourselves trained people in our environment to think that we're okay with everything they do, and we never have any difference of opinion. So I think we have to be compassionate and understanding that there will be some pushback, there will be some time of adjustment, but the bottom line is, if people truly care about us and truly want to stay in our lives, and they truly want to keep us in their lives, and they genuinely okay with the changes they are seeing in us, they're going to stay. Especially if like sometimes what also happens also with some other friends. I had this experience once I started to kind of like expressing some of my no's, I mean not no's but no's, and like things that I'm not happy about. I have a friend, for example, who said, I'm so happy that actually you're doing it, because like you've been suppressing it. Feels like you are actually becoming more empowered and becoming more real. The chances are that there already are people in your life who are waiting for you to do that. It is a difficult part of spreading this authenticity and change in our lives, but becoming okay with the conflict is basically unavoidable part of starting to implement our boundaries and our sense of self, and teaching or training other people to accept that about us. Okay, so I don't know how people make sure that their hair looks exactly the same in all the episodes and the videos that they do, because mine certainly doesn't. I think once I'm gonna cut this video, you're gonna find one frame like this, another frame like that, another frame like this. So yeah, basically you'll be able to see the time lapse because of the condition of my hair.